Right. With that, all right. Well, hey, good morning, everybody. This is the March 22nd Notary Governance call. We have a big full list, full agenda. So thanks for you that are on the call with us live and might be watching this remote. Um, as far as the agenda, we kind of keep this high level, but if this might be your first time tuning in, we start a little bit with new introductions. People introduce themselves in the chat, or if you'd like to do so on the call for a friendly hello. Then we also get into a very high level on metrics. Where do we stand on the program? Then we save time for what's going on within the notaries in the community, then any updates we may have. And we always save time at the end for discussions. So if this is your first time joining and you had questions or issues or wanted to share, it's all on the agenda on the repo. So with that, just a quick friendly hello from your governance team, Deep, Galen, and myself. You might see us in Slacks, just your friendly helpers, and kind of here's just a quick description on where we can plug in best to give you the most bang for your buck. So if this is your first time on the call, you don't have to, but it goes a long way. Just typing your name in the chat. We could just say like, hi, I'm Kevin, I'm from North America. And then we could just say hello and make sure that we're tracking. For those of you that are notaries on the call, as always, you appreciate it. Presence is greatly appreciated. So thank you again. So with that, quick look at metrics. So we have been highlighting this slide again and again, and I'm trying to make it less like, hey, let's spend a lot of time and more. Where do we see any changes? This week is no exception. It's kind of been this way for the past few weeks, in that the average time to data cap is around the same. We don't really have any increase or decrease, which is fine. We'll be investing heavily this next year. And same thing with first response. So pretty much if we were to say, the program is reaching like this natural state of these elements, and anything we want to get better, we're going to have to really focus on. So that's the big takeaway from the metrics that we're looking at. Now, before we move on to metrics, I think a big part of our conversation here is the election scoring and the timelines. So before I get into that, did anybody have questions on a high level with introductions or metrics? I didn't think so. Those are pretty straightforward. All right. So for the notary elections, I think you might have saw we posted in the GitHub repository. And what we're proposing is this. Rather than telling you who are the notaries that were selected today, we're asking for one more week, and we propose this to give any notaries that we sent requests to in their applications a little bit more time to respond. So if you take a look at the highlighted updated areas, the election was scheduled to end today, but that only left maybe a day, 2 days in some cases for notaries to get back any additional information. So what we're proposing, and we floated there, is rather than just rush to announce, we'd like to give you guys more time. So the updated proposal would be to allow open-ended scoring for the next couple of days, and then the initial sets of notaries announced on the 1st. So I see we already have a hand up. Galen, I'll unmute and want to add in.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in. Sorry, thanks, excuse me. Thank you, K-Ray. Yesterday, we aggregated the scoring. We had at least 2 sets of eyes, and in most cases, 3 sets of eyes for every application that came in. We had over 60 applications, which was amazing. Huge range of projects and stakeholders. Very fun to like see all the different enthusiastic community members. So we have taken all those applications, reviewed them, scored them based on the rubrics. You can find the rubrics in the GitHub repo, and then generated a scorecard and attached a scorecard back for each individual person into their application. It has some notes in some cases and kind of an average score. We already, so from doing that yesterday at the end of the day to this morning in something like 8 hours, we have already gotten, I think, 6 replies from applicants with more detail, which is great. That's exactly what we want, because we want this to be a conversation where people that are relatively new to the community, or maybe, have been a notary for a while, but, put in their application, last minute. We want to give them a chance to really convince us and the community that they will be a good notary partner, and giving that feedback and then allowing them to reply to the feedback and us to assess those scores. So that is why we're asking for more time here. We appreciate everybody's patience. I understand it's been kind of a long process, but I think that it is going to really pay dividends to get great, active, engaged community members. So if you submitted an application, please go check for that scorecard, ask clarifying questions. You can tag us and we will try and stay on top of catching and flagging and replying to those as quickly as possible. We are not taking totally new applications at this point. So if you're watching this call and you missed that initial submission deadline, like, we're sorry, we'll happily catch you in the next round, but we're not taking brand new applicants in this week. So just wanted to clarify there. Julian, see a hand.
Hey, yes, one question. So I've seen a PDF attached to the GitHub issue. The questions are supposed to be in that PDF?
Yeah, so in that PDF, it has your score and it may have notes. So you should see score for each rubric category.
Okay.
So
If
it's not the prettiest PDF. I apologize, but I'm learning Airtable.
No, that's fine. As soon as it's efficient. Just one question. So if there is no question in the notes, that means that you don't expect anything back from us, right?
Not necessarily. It may just be that the person who assessed it didn't put notes or comments. Okay. But if you see that you have a low score that you disagree with, by checking the rubric category, if you think I got a 2 here and I think that it should be a 3 based on this information and you want to provide more information, please do so. Just because we didn't put a note or a question doesn't mean that we think that we're completely right. So if you disagree with the score that you got, please add those comments in, add the additional information, ask for clarifying questions.
Can you share again the scorecard again?
Yeah, I will pull up the public rubric, and I think it's in GitHub. I'll work on pulling that up, and we'll see what Deep has.
Thank you.
Yeah, all I wanted to add was basically, one, Julian and everybody else watching this, it's an opportunity for you to look at how your application was scored and agree or disagree and give feedback to the actual scoring process as well. Second, I think there's parts of the application that can be improved substantively, right? Like there's a lot of it which is based on background, where it's like based on your past experience or based on like when your involvement with Filecoin started, or like how many followers you have on social media. Like these things you can't change in the course of a week usually. And so that's more about ensuring that you've provided enough of the stats up front. And so if we've missed something there, it's probably because we need a little bit more information from you, and you should feel free to say, hey, I think it should be better or worse or whatever. You've missed something, here's some more information. I think the part that really I'm much more interested in people spending time on is actually the allocation plan side of things, which is the 3 sets of questions around allocation plan, client due diligence, and the bookkeeping plan. I would say on average, this is the easiest way for those of you watching. This is the easiest way for you to differentiate yourself in the scoring process as a notary. There are several notaries that have done extremely well on how they've scored in this section. All applications are public. I would say please learn and see if there's any opportunities that you have to pull your scores up in those areas, because that is something that I think by investing like a few minutes in, as long as you actually do agree and are willing to do that work, then it could benefit your application to sort of improve that sort of section of how you position yourself as a notary and what you want to sort of contribute to the community once you have that stakeholder position in this working group. And so I would encourage you all to view this more as like here's an initial score. What do you want to agree or disagree with? And then what do you want to change in your application? Because what we'll do then is we'll go back and just look at all the recent edits, update the scores before the end of the week, and proceed from there. Galen, I see Bingha in the chat saying that they haven't gotten the scores. Just pulling out.
Julian, I see you have a hand up too.
I don't actually see Bingha on our list of notary applications.
Yeah, me neither. Bingha, if you could post your application, it's possible that we may have missed it and made a mistake. So please post your link to the GitHub application and we can go review it.
I do see it. It's this one, right? Cool. Yeah, I think this is missing from our tracker. So we'll get that sorted today and have that over to you.
Yep. Sorry about that.
Cool. And then the rubric, I actually have an updated draft rubric based on the proposal that I had filed way back when. I think, Galen, I'll take the action item of circling back with you in Kira's absence after the call and just getting a version of it publicly that we can share with Julian and others.
I was trying to find it and I was failing. Sorry about that.
No, all good. I have it here. I'm just going to put the link in chat, but we can share it more officially afterwards as well. Yeah. But Julian, just to unblock you at least for now, I'm putting it in chat in 30 seconds, maybe less. There you go. Cool. Any other people that we don't have in the tracker or might have missed? This is good. I'm glad we were able to catch this as well, because that changes the when I ensure that the rankings are done correctly. Thank you for being here, Notary from Pinga, and giving us a heads up. I appreciate it. Cool.
All right. So we're going to be sending that out on the 1st. Everybody has their scores. We're here for any questions you may have. Thanks for that. Sweet. The next topic we have two coming up. We have an update from Galen and Deep about South by Southwest, and then a discussion around a proposal that was designed to make communications a little bit easier. This was flagged by a couple of members. So I need a few people into the chat. And then Galen, I will turn it over to you for Southwest.
Yes, it was a ton of fun getting to meet a number of people in person. We had a storage provider sort of working group workshop. I'm still getting over the head cold that I have had for weeks and weeks. So I was not the most chipper and able to contribute as I would have hoped. But Deep and I were there, and we had representatives from a number of, I think every geographic region was represented by at least one storage provider. We covered a lot of topics around some different proof of concept projects that are in flight, some different communication streams. There's a lot of talk around storage providers performing their own KYC and what that would look like to basically perform the KYC in place of a client or in place of a notary doing it and provide that information directly to the notary. And then there were a lot of different conversations around how do storage providers act as notaries, perform KYC and perform that basically self-notarization of their own clients. And then some talk around tooling projects that we want to work on, and Deep and I still have a lot of action items to sort of summarize this and get it into either some kind of blog post or some kind of public document that we could review. But Deep, what were some of the other big high-level talking points that came up for you?
Yeah, I think for me, generally, it was really great to get a bunch of faces to names for people. It was also a really good opportunity for the folks that were there, like really express like what the notary due diligence process means, whether that's for like clients that are coming into the network that like storage providers are working towards like bringing them in and doing the business development for them, or notaries that were in the room and had opinions on like what it means to actually do like KYC and do low friction, like good, like low friction, good user experience index sort of experiences to ensure that people come into the network fell into like the path of success. I think there were a couple of interesting scenarios that we talked about that are a little bit unique compared to what Filecoin Plus has served before. Nothing surprising. All things that we've talked about where it comes with regards to like private data, encrypted data, solving for clients that have like specific geographic restrictions or need certain standards to be met for types of storage providers they're working with. And so sort of scaling where we're at faster, quicker, iterating a little bit faster to get into serving these needs because these clients are starting to come now. And so I really enjoy the conversation in terms of like how we should continue to push on as a group and as a governance community, like the types of clients that we want to support, and increase our range as Filecoin Plus really becomes like the main pathway for like productivity on the network, and it grows to support the demand here, right? One of the things, Galen, you talked a lot about was the presence, the relative presence of Filecoin Plus and verified deal making on the chain, which when we used to have these calls 6 months ago, we were like single-digit percentages of what the network was doing even at that time, and now we're like very clearly like a majority of everything that's happening is coming through this system. And so changes that need to be made to the system, of course, expectations for different types of stakeholders, of course, but then also changing the scope of the system and it's like different leverage mechanisms to ensure that it grows to the next order of magnitude of demand. And so I think lots of good takeaways, lots of interesting client scenarios discussed. And I'm looking forward to sort of some of these things appearing as a discussion topics or as a set of issues in the very near future. I think one specific one I wanted to share was there was a push from Meg from Holon on better standardization and systematization of like how we do governance iteration as a group. And so like a good example of this is if somebody opens an issue, then like we don't always necessarily work to close it out as a group. We often just say, oh, the ones that are progressing, progress, and the ones that aren't sort of just sit and wait. And instead of necessarily going through that model, we could institute like sets of bounded time. So like little sprints or iteration cycles and how we do governance as a group of people. So like setting it such that like no issues open for more than 3 weeks or 4 weeks or 6 weeks. Like some multiple of a governance call. I'm personally quite excited about like building better processes and systems to ensure that we stay productive as a governance entity, where like all of the people that are in this call and are participating in Slack or GitHub feel empowered to make change, to improve the quality of the system, and find that it is a successful or good use of their time to work with each other to progress how probably one of the most important systems in the network, at least in the network stage today, is evolving and iterating. So yeah, thanks so much for all those of you that were there for the conversation. Thank you so much for all those of you that are always here for the conversation. And I'm excited to sort of continue seeing the group of people grow and get more active. Cool. So, Carrie, I stuck in a couple of slides in terms of like the actual like open issues right now that are there. This is the one that you added in on, oh, I might need you to hit refresh actually. Let's see if that works. Good, nice.
Deeper than this new deck, or where would I find those slides?
I'm in the.
Oh, I see. You put them in. I gotta hit refresh here to see.
Yes, it should be good.
Yeah, that's the one downside to the preview mode, because it doesn't necessarily catch those
There you go.
updates.
Cool.
Okay.
Thanks.
Then Deep, I will. I'll cover the Slack, then I'll hand it over to you for this.
Sounds great.
All right.
Thank you.
Hey, so we made a repo to talk about how can we make that Fil Plus Slack channel just a little bit more effective. So this was flagged a couple of times actually, that right now, if you go into the public Fil Plus channel with 1,300 members in it, you would be bombarded with notifications for review my application. Hey, where's my data cap? What's the status of it? And essentially those requests for information are starting to strangle out any other comms on the channel. So we heard you on that. We floated the idea in this proposal that you'll see shared here, and it's issue number 475 in the repo. And it's essentially saying that we begin to lightly moderate that Fil Plus channel. And the moderation would look like this, that if somebody posted, hey, this is Kevin, would you please review my application? Here's the link to the application. What we do is we remove that and we paste it into a new channel. It's called application review. And we leave a little note. Now, if you still want to advertise about your product or your project and say, hey, this is Kevin, I'm doing something really cool, come check me out. Very, very different. Please come post away. This would only be those links like, hey, where's my data? Hey, where's my data? Having a venue for it. And then the goal is that we, being myself, Galen, Deep, can look at that channel and look at the open issues and start to try to connect notaries with issues that might be open or it lets us know maybe we should check these issues and get some more information on it. So if you have strong conviction on this, either yes, either no, please go comment on the ticket. Happily take thumbs up on this call, but this might impact the community for a while. So having any kind of record on that ticket would be greatly appreciated. It looks like Galen just linked it in there. But again, we would remove requests for data from Fil Plus, put it in a separate application, and try to keep that channel more. This might have some discussion before you just weigh in writing. So I'll mute. And if you want to say anything, this is an open avenue for discussion right now.
See, notaries are not in there. They should be added, right?
Which channel was this? The application review?
Yeah.
They 100% will be. I didn't add anybody until we had a chance to say, is this the course we wanted to take? Otherwise, I might start spamming you and lose your trust, notaries. So once we've approved this, yes, notaries will be in this channel as well.
Got it.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from some notaries because I think the trade-off here is basically splitting attention, like needing to look at multiple places. But at the same time, like, I don't even know how many people look at that channel, how many people prefer to operate outside or inside. I also have heard anecdotally from several clients that the way in which they get applications viewed now is through DMs and just like pushing notaries in DMs to see if they can make time to look. So I'd love to hear, there's many notaries on the call, like, what do you folks think of this? Does this look like a good model for you? Is this something that you're comfortable like bookmarking or starring and then like looking at once a day or once every other day as part of sort of the time that you're committing? Hey, Julian, can you actually share that on the GitHub issue? That way, as we do the audit and review, we can go through across the board instead of trying to tackle that in chat right now because it would require double checking the math.
Yeah, sure. What's the highest score we can get? Is it 3.1?
I think you can go higher than that. I think theoretically it should
I
max
think
out
you
at a
can,
5. If everything is a 5 everywhere.
Yeah, I think you can max out at 5, but it depends on how the calculations.
Okay.
Deep, the spreadsheet that you shared, yeah, it has the calculation. So Julian, just to like make sure that we're looking at the same thing, in the different rows, some of them are maxes and some of them are basically where it takes like a average or a calculation percent. So it'll be like either the highest from one category, or it'll take like the average of the scores from that category. So it's not just a add up all of them and take your average.
Yeah, what I understood is like if you take, we can just fill just the green line in deep document with the one from the PDF, right? That should give the same result. Is that correct?
It should, I think it should, but yeah, we can double check the math in our sheet as well.
But I might be wrong. Huh?
Yeah, we'll look at the math as well. But yeah, if you could post in your application issue, and then we'll get back to it. Thanks. Okay. Coming back to this open conversation, the like Slack question, I think fundamentally I agree that it becomes like really cluttered with how it unspools the GitHub issue in Slack, and we start to like lose track. I do really like how people can, like Kara was saying, like post their like project announcements or like project updates. And so I think to me, like the biggest kind of behavior change that we would like is for people to sort of be doing like marketing and publicity on their project beyond just kind of saying, here's my GitHub link, please go approve it, and like posting the link. Like the ones that I think have been like much more interesting and successful are ones where they give, start a thread, or they give like a slide deck, or like, more kind of information that catches the eye about what their project is doing, compared to just sort of that GitHub link that looks pretty similar across each one. I do think this could always be safe enough to try if we decide that we want to go this route and stand up this other channel and start kind of moderating to move those, and we could do it as a trial period. If, again, to like Deep's point from a previous conversation around like how quickly do we make and implement decisions. But I think the biggest thing is like we would love to hear from some clients if they would go to another channel to post, or how that would feel of getting moderated. And then we want to hear from notaries, like if it would be successful if they're going to check another Slack channel to see like what those project updates are. So those are kind of the questions that we have.
Hi, Galen. Jesse here, subbing in for Masaki. So, hey, personally, I think this is a great idea to segregate application reviews from, like just marketing communications. And you're right, it's triangulating the comms that's supposed to serve the real purpose of Fil Plus Slack channel. So we personally think this is a good idea, and we're on board on this 100%. But I think one thing that we should also do is probably once we have implemented this, we have to stay vigilant on the Fil Plus channel. And if we see someone posting application reviews there, let's just give them a nudge. Just say, yeah, you can post that on application review. So that should also be part of the notaries, like duty, like maybe once a day, just checking in. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Great call out. Thanks, Jesse. I know that we also have some people at the foundation that are working on some ambassadors programs. This could also be a great sort of extra line item scope of work for some of those ambassadors to like help us be in these different public channels and helping us moderate the communication. So it sounds like right now there's a general consensus that this might be a good thing to try. I think we'll kind of leave this issue open, talk about it again in the next governance call today, see if we get any strong dissenting opinions in either the call or this issue. And then based on that, we'll probably make a decision to try it and kind of post in that comment. We'll let people know.
Cool. Thank you, Galen.
Thanks.
Look forward to seeing the comments in writing, making sure that we save time for the next 3 in our presentations. Deep, I think that this one was yours. I don't know.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk a little bit about notary selection based on regional demand. Like I did a similar analysis for the last election cycle, which I think a lot of people supported, and that ended up like becoming the mechanism for how many notaries we ended up selecting. And so I wanted to do something similar to propose based on like how our program has evolved, because just using the same and applying it, I don't think makes a lot of sense. Like we should be continuing to grow and iterate. And I think the general context of how a notary works and gets elected has changed quite a bit in the last 6 months between the previous election cycle and this one. And so for context, there were 61 applications. Well, probably 62 actually, considering
62.
Our tracker missed fingers for some reason. And so previously, the way we had set the notaries was we looked at trying to match demand as closely as possible. Like we looked at the amount of data cap that had been allocated per region, then use that as an estimation of approximate distribution of data cap availability, and then work back from that into like a rough number of notaries that we'd like to accept. Now, there have been a couple of interesting proposals. I think Fatman tossed out at least 2, which I'll be talking about right after this, that we discussed in the previous governance call. That got me a little bit thinking in terms of, the goals are have a great client experience, increase the amount of data cap available to people, and reduce the amount of time it takes for clients to get to data cap. And so in general, I found that the community was pretty aligned around having more notaries overall. In the past, we've sort of proposed like scaling up to supporting at least 50 notaries. And so I decided to sort of take the math that we had done for the previous election cycle and adjust that based on how people had been able to leverage the fact that they had data cap and clients were able to leverage existing data cap to adjust like percentages a little bit and balance a little bit more across different regions to then come out with a number that sort of seems like a reasonable estimate for how many notaries we should proceed with. So previously, we were looking at multiple regions, like all 7, like the math had South America and Africa as well in it, where we had baked in like a 0 to 10% buffer for those regions, as well as Oceania. And then it was 40% to the Greater China region, and I believe 20% to North America and 10% to Europe. And so this issue 479 sort of details in length, like how I arrived at the proposed sort of data cap granted distribution. So please do check that out if you're interested. But effectively what I'm pitching is that currently, based on how like applications are coming in, the amount of interest that we seem to have from a business development standpoint, the amount of demand that we've seen being served and actual deal making happening on chain, I'm proposing like this as the new sort of distribution, at least for this governance cycle or this election cycle, where Europe is targeted to receive about 20%, China is targeted to receive 30% allocation, North America at 25%, the rest of Asia 20%, and Oceania 5%. And I'm explicitly scrapping Africa and South America from the math because we don't have any applications from there at the moment. And instead of just leaving it as a percentage, I then went ahead and actually put in numbers to sort of come back with an estimate to pitch to you as a group to see what you folks think and if you think this is reasonable. And effectively, like the second column has like the actual number of applications received. Please note that it should be at least 24 for China once we add in Bingas. And then sort of the proposed number of notaries, if we were targeting 50 as the number of notaries to select, like the expected value effectively of that. And then based on the expected value and the actual application this number received, I have sort of a proposed number of notaries that we take. And that effectively puts us in a position where pretty much every notary that's applying from Europe and Oceania would get accepted. From China, about like somewhere between 15 and 20. Theoretically, like we want to go towards the upper bound because we're having compensation from Europe and Oceania not actually hitting, like, well, Europe at least not actually hitting like 20% because only 5 notaries applied. But somewhere between 18 and 20 for China. North America similarly would be expected to be around 13, but because we have compensation, we could probably take all 14 theoretically. And then Asia, not counting the Greater China region, had several more applications than in the past. And so getting to take at least 10 would probably be beneficial to sort of ramp up the presence of notaries there and ensure that we're serving the demand. We've seen like pretty big spike of interest in general Filecoin and Filecoin network, but also decentralized storage in several markets in Asia outside of China, both because of changes in regulation in different regions and geopolitical boundaries, but also just in general, I think a lot of companies working extremely hard to do effective business development in Korea, Japan, Singapore, and different countries. And so want to ensure that we're scaling up to support the demand and have regional expertise available for clients that are interested in scaling up in the network. And so I think the big sort of motivations for pushing such high numbers, I think the biggest one right now is that I am in agreement with, I think most people here, that we need more notaries. Like time to data cap is still low. The due diligence burden is high. A lot of notaries are unable to execute at the level that they want to execute just because it takes too much time. So distributing the work across more people would help because it would reduce the expectation of each individual person. Second, I think as we go through like election cycles, the interesting thing is the previous election cycle, I think also had like 62 or 63 applications, but there was a significant amount of net new applications as well this time. Like for example, in the Asia region, there were several new organizations applying to be notaries that have never applied before or have not participated in the program. And it's really good to see sort of fresh blood and fresh energy coming into the system. And we should leverage that instead of losing that. And so I want to push us towards being more accepting of at least giving people a chance. And that's kind of in vein with how we're also working towards how we handle clients that might be abusing the system, where instead of necessarily making an incredibly burdensome upfront KYC process, we have the opportunity to sort of let them get some data cap, run with it, see what happens on chain, and use that as part of the decision-making process like down the line, or have that like directly and drastically impact their ability to receive and use data cap in the network. And in that same vein, I think anchoring towards taking more notaries and being slightly less selective, but instead being more vigilant on how they're able to serve the network, especially with the introduction of this new sort of service level agreement and engagement metric, which has notaries commit to a certain number. I think we can be a little bit tighter on like how many notaries lost through the duration of the process, and instead anchor on taking on more notaries up front. And so, yeah, this is my proposal. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If anybody here thinks this is reasonable, I'd also appreciate hearing that, because I think that like it is a big change for like the order of magnitude at which we operate. For context, again, last time around, we received about the same number of applications and only about 23 or 24 notaries, I think, were elected. So this would literally double the number of notaries and half the selectivity effectively of the process. And so that is a big change. I don't necessarily expect everybody to be in agreement. And so I'd love to hear opinions. I know some of you were paying attention because I saw you. Yeah, Julian, what's up? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm fine with this. That's fine. That's good for me.
Okay, I see a message from Jesse saying more notaries 100%. Faye, actually, this is standard notaries. Like, even though your application was purely for LDN, technically you would still get elected as a notary. It would just be that if you came in at a lower score, if this was the first time you were for being a notary, or if you just asked for less of an allocation as a direct notary, you would just get less. And so this is actually the full set, which are eligible for both direct allocation at different amounts and LDN at a similar weight.
Yeah, in my PDF, it mentioned that seems we're lacking such a framework of the pure LDN notaries. So is that being thinking about, or?
Yeah, so I think there is an argument to be made that we could have like classes of notaries based on the type of like applications that they sign. Okay, this is an opinion and not a statement. So let me frame it and you can choose to disagree or agree. My opinion is that that is a much longer conversation, and we're still like relatively early in the LDN cycle. Like, we just made a bunch of changes in the community and we're watching sort of the implications of those changes. We're still lacking a bunch of the audit tracking and sort of like the follow-up process. Like, we're going through our first few disputes now where we realize that, like, you know, it's clear from on-chain behavior that clients are abusing some parts of the system. Like, what do we want to do about it? So I think until those things get fleshed out, it's difficult to define a difference in the two roles. And delaying the election process, I don't think is a super good idea. And so I would instead say that, like, in your case, you were actually one of the only notaries that said you were only interested in participating in LDNs. We could use this as an experiment where you come on as a standard notary, and then we figure out what the differences are in terms of expectations and engagement, and use that as a model to build out the framework for like the next election cycle.
Cool. Thank you.
Does that sound reasonable, Faye? Or would you rather we push on it harder now?
No, that's fine. I'm just thinking if I should amend my application to do non-LDN stuff as well.
Yeah, I definitely, you can think about that. I think it's going to be free for you if you get elected either way. It might be interesting to do request a small amount to just test out the flow, learn the tooling, etc.
Yeah, okay.
It could be interesting to get the feedback. I think the other thing that like is interesting here is that I brought this up a couple of weeks ago, but the LDN process is a little warped at the moment because it has a slightly lower bar for due diligence, but it has a much higher bar for like expected trustworthiness and like the leverage that a client gets from going through it. So having, notaries that are dedicated to that, I think is a very compelling argument, like makes a lot of sense. But at the same time, like having notaries that are just having notaries overall that serve the need that's coming in is the most important. And so I think like before we start filtering things, we should at least get to the point where we can scale up and get the right number and ensure all the clients coming in are being served. And then we can figure out how to adjust from there.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Any other thoughts? I'm generally hearing some support. Yes.
Sorry, Galen. So this is Eric. So I was asking, so according to this discussion, so each region will be increased a lot of the notary. So when the people who ask for the application, so for the region which you have, which the client makes the application, and the region notary will be did the KYC, due diligence, or everything. Am I right?
Yeah, that's what is supposed to be happening right now is when a client applies, they pick a notary and they should be picking that notary based on the region they operate in. And a notary should be redirecting a client. So for example, if a notary is operating in North America and a client applies and says that they're in Europe, the notary should say, thanks for your application. I'm, not in your region. Here are 2 other notaries you could apply with. So we want the client who is in a particular region to apply to a notary from that region, because then that's kind of the point of having the regional expertise, understanding the different, geopolitical laws or standards or expectations, and speaking similar languages. So the hope is, if we have 18 to 20 in the greater China region, then that will serve clients that are located in that region.
That's great. Sounds reasonable. So according to the last governance meeting, I was asking for the standard for KYC. But after that, I was thinking about the KYC is only suited for Chinese customer. To be honest, I'm not quite sure about how to do the KYC for European clients or US clients. So
exactly,
the region notary to your company, that's what you familiar with. So that's reasonable.
Yep.
Good. Thank you. Good.
And also to Faye's point about LDN notaries, we have another notary on this call who, in addition to being a great community member and driving a lot of conversations, I don't think has made any allocations directly as a notary, because I don't think anyone applied to them, and has only made allocations as an LDN. And so we do have notaries that perform that function and serve it very well. So even though they have that allocation, it doesn't necessarily hinder them in serving as a notary.
I see Kyrie throwing up the timer, so I'm going to cede my time. The next 2 slides that I was going to talk about were issues that I had raised in the last governance call. So what I wanted to bring up today was just that I added in the notes from the last governance call. I proposed the next steps. My ask to you is just go look at them in GitHub. If you agree, please give us a thumbs up. And I want to put this into motion of sort of reacting and moving a little bit quicker in our governance cycles. And so issue number 428, and I think the following issue is number 425. Please go take a look in GitHub. Let me know what you think, and let's hand it back to Kyrie.
Sweet. We had 2 groups that would like to present today. I think we'll go in this order. So Sigrid, I'm going to give you permission to share screen. You'll have 5 minutes on the floor to walk us through your presentation. And Helios, just to give you a heads up, you'll be on deck next. So I'm going to stop sharing, and you guys should have permission to share screen first. Sigrid will let you go. If you have any kind of tech, let me know and I'll check it here.
Okay, I will share the screen now.
We can see it okay. The floor is yours.
Okay. Great, thanks, Kevin. And we are Epik protocol, and we are open and collaborative AI data network, and all this data is stored in a decentralized storage and can be accessed by all AI bots in the Web3. Okay. We all know AI data is expensive now, and the requirements for the AI data becomes more and more specialized, and the cost to collect the high quality AI data becomes more and more expensive. And here is the price to collect AI data provided by Google, and is expensive. And even our partners who collect AI data in Southeast Asia is also expensive now. So the AI data is a very big market, but we should spend a lot of money to collect the high quality AI data. So as for the Epik protocol, we want to build a permissionless infrastructure, and we can provide the incentives for community members, allow them to curate, store, and share AI data together. And we can share all this AI data to billions of AI bots in the real world or in the metaverse. In this way, we can make the AI data cheaper to be used by AI bots, by AI developers. Our solution looks like this. Here we have a lot of the public and the private data sources, and some people in our community will join to curate AI data, and all this AI data is collected by a gamified crowdsourcing app we will introduce later. And all the AI data collected by our community members will be stored in decentralized storage. And we provide the size to this storage to AI bots in the Web3. That means each AI bots developers can access all this data in a permissionless way. In the last year, we have produced more than 10 gigabytes high quality AI data in our network. So it's amazing, and our community members created so many AI data in the last year. In order to hit the contributors who join to curate AI data in the Epik protocol are divided into two categories. And the first one is the domain expert, and then the second one is the bounty hunters. Domain experts is the leader. Because we want to collect some AI data, we need a leader to tell us what kind of data we need to collect. And the leader also need to tell us what kind of data is high quality and can be qualified to be used by AI bots, by other AI developers. So domain experts plays the leading roles. He define the requirements, and he join to review all the AI data collected by our community members. And as for the bounty hunters, are the people who join our community, and they will help domain experts to collect AI data and to make sure we have a lot of the human resources to label, to review, to collect AI data in our community. The workflow will like this. The domain experts will first design the AI data format, and then he will publish the collection tasks to our GameFi application, and all the bounty hunters can download the app and try to label the AI data in the app to earn money. And all collected AI data from the app will be reviewed by the domain experts. The domain experts will make sure all the AI data collected by bounty hunters are high quality, and he will delete the low quality AI data and reserve the high quality AI data, and then upload this high quality AI data to the decentralized storage. So in this way, we can produce the high quality AI data continuously. And as for the
1 minute warning, this will have to be whatever last 1 minute warning.
Okay. As for domain experts, he just to design the data format, and then the bounty hunters will download our app and try to label the data. Now we have the 100,000 registered users and 10,000 10,000 active daily users. All these users has covered more than 20 countries. And here is the download link. Because we have generated a lot of the AI data now, but as for our network is consists of the home computers. They can only store limited AI data. For example, we think in our estimation, we think they can store the 100 gigabytes AI data, but we have more than AI data than this limitation. So we think the network consists of by professional computers such as the Filecoin can help us to store this data. The infrastructure in the Filecoin is enough to store 10 or 100 gigabytes, right? So and
with that, I think maybe what we could do is we could migrate the rest of this if you want to take this conversation to Slack or to the repo. Sorry to cut you off, but we have 2 more presenters that are coming on. Is there any closing thoughts you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, 1 minute. 1 minute, I can finish the presentation.
No, you had the minute. So we're at 9. We'll just anything you want to post to chat, and then maybe we can give you more time next week if you want to get into another detail on that.
Okay.
Yeah, lots of slides there. Sweet. We have one more presenter coming on deck. Let me, if you stop sharing, we'll hand the floor over to Helios.
Okay. I should stop now.
Yes, would be great to have you next time if you would like to continue the presentation.
Yes,
you
please.
that.
We could set up more time if you need it.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, guys.
I'll take you off. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, Helios, the floor is yours. We'll set the 5-minute timer on you.
Should I share my my file?
Yes, you can go ahead.
Did I share already or not?
You sent it to me, but please screen share. I don't know what your pace of presentation. I'll just put your file.
Let me share mine. I have my. I don't see mine. Can I use yours?
You want me to screen share? You Slacked me the file last night. Just go to your Slack and open up that file.
All right. Where's my file? I can't share a PDF. I was trying to share a PDF. It seems I can't share a PDF.
Just screen share, and the floor is yours. Do you need me to help?
Let me try this again. Interestingly, I can't share.
All right.
Okay,
guys,
here we go.
Sharing his PDF. Can you see?
Well, yeah, I can totally see that. All right. Yeah, let's use that.
Okay.
All right. Okay. All right. So nice to meet you guys over here. Good morning, good evening. And so well, today I'm gonna spend a bit time to give a bit introduction of our company, and hopefully we could partner up in terms of this storage activities. All right, our company was founded in 2017. Our parent company was founded like 26 years ago. We were the largest, the first ERP consulting company in mainland China, and the headquarters in Shanghai. We have multiple branches around the global. We have North America and Europe, South Asia, and China, Southeast Asia, Japan, and etc. So we are fairly big, and we have over 10,000 employees around global. We were pretty good in terms of the partnership with big companies. So we were good with SAP. So we were good with American Express, HRS, Uber, and a lot of others, financial companies and internet companies and etc. So here, that's the feeder of Helios. So we have mobile, we have budget management, partnership, we do credit. So we credit the clients and individuals. So we have end-to-end T&D, we have invoice, control point management, analysis, approval, and etc. We have a lot of things. So by the way, I think I forgot to give a bit introduction of what we are. So we are a T&E management solution company. So similar to the previous speaker, we do artificial intelligence too, but we are only focused on this T&E. So we provide artificial intelligence solutions to our clients. And here we go. So we have this invoice and scan invoice and all kinds of invoices. So we analyze. So we have a report. Well, you can slide to the next page.
All right. And then just for time, you guys have 1 minute left. 1 minute warning.
All right. So well, that's kind of the analysis report we have. Yeah. Keep going. Next slide. Since we have only 1 minute left. Do we have a next slide?
Nope.
All right, we don't.
Page 7.
Okay, let me give a bit introduction since we still have some time. So we have over 3,000 clients across many countries. So we serve nearly 100 million individual customers. Well, we are B2B2C service to manage their T&E activities. So quite a lot of activities going on. That's why we have 10,000 people. That's it. Any questions?
Great. I appreciate the rundown. If you want, feel free to share that deck. I'll link it into the repo and then I'll merge it into master. That way it lives on. And I think that we had another request for presentation. I'm sorry, I ran out of time. As always, in the GitHub repo, if you'd like to talk or present, just let us know and we'll add you to the agenda and then make sure that we're saving time for it. So if you want to come back, by all means, Leo, I'd love to have you guys and go on. I think with the last minute we have, were there any alibis that anybody wanted to flag for either like kickoff here or discussions that we could pull into Slack or into the repositories?
Just want to know if the rookie holder is gonna start approving the new data caps.
Good question.
Yeah, I think we need to do a quick catch up on that. We've been delinquent on our documentation and pushing forward because of both the conference and then the prioritization of the elections phase. I expect that like after all the scores went out yesterday, we're planning to do one big batch, at least vetting and ensuring they get to the root key holders this week. So hopefully in the next day or two, you see some progress.
Yes. And just flagging, I know the time zone may not work, but we do have another hour slot in 7 hours if you were not able to present or finish your presentation. And then, we'll have another call in 2 weeks. So we'd love to hear from everybody. Awesome. Great. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy your day. We'll see you on the next call.
Cheers, everyone. All right. Well, hello. Welcome to, with the time zones, I don't even know what time it is. Our 4 p.m. Afternoon session, part 2 of the March 22nd governance call. Thanks for being on the line for you guys that are here right now. If you're watching on YouTube, we'll post all the links as we go through it. But let's take a quick look at what's on the agenda today. So we're going to start out with new introductions. If this is your first time on the call, happy you're here. We're going to give you an opportunity to say hi in the chat. That way we have your name. If there's anything we can get for you, just consider us your water boys to help you run that down. We'll take some time to talk about metrics. Where does the program stand since we last talked? We will discuss the notary activity, what's going on with the election, key dates to be aware of, and then open issues, looking at some of the geographical regions, looking at some of the ways that we can make our Slack channel more effective. And as always, just what you guys want to talk about. So we had 2 guest speakers this morning. If you guys are back, we'll happily give you more floor time, or if anybody else would like to speak. So rough draft, this is what we kind of have on our horizon going forward. My name's Kevin. I work on the team along with the wonderful Deep and Galen. If you haven't seen this before, feel free to flag us, and we'll get you relatively whatever we can do to make your life a little bit easier. And with that, if this is your first time on the call, please come into chat and be like, hi, my name's Kevin. I'm from North America. I'm interested in XYZ part of the program. And we can maybe reach out to you a little bit later or just know how to help you best. So if this is your first time on the call, Fight Club rules are in effect, please. So with that, let's take a look at metrics. I show the same slide every 2 weeks. And what I'm looking for is if we have a significant change. We're blessed to have Alexandre on the call who's working on the leaderboard, and we'll have like a working version of this in a few weeks of like what it looks like for each notary. But the big call out right now is just thank you to the community taking part. Our time to data cap, our time to first response, those are holding steady, which tells us we're kind of at that industry standard for about how long it takes to get back to somebody. And our network is consistently growing week over week. If you take a look at the amount of data cap allocated to clients, every week it seems like we grow 0.3 petabytes. So it's like we're reaching that clockwork stage. And the next part's in 2022 that we'll talk about later is like, how do we scale this as we go forward to make this more effective? So with this is all we're going to highlight with metrics tonight. And pretty much the takeaway on this is it's pretty much in line. We're pretty much in line. We've been working those LDNs down, working those large data caps. So with that, I'll pause. If this was your first time and you had a question on the call, if you had a question on the agenda, or you want to discuss anything on metrics, now is your moment. Once we get through this, we'll talk about the election score. All right, I'm sure there'll be lots of questions as we go. So let's take a look at the notary elections as we go through this. So one of the things we posted in the GitHub repository last week was that we received 62 applications, which was the highest number that we've had in the program's history. And just quite frankly, it was a lot to score these. So essentially, Dalen, Deep, myself went through these one by one, and we assigned a number based off what information was filled out in the repository, tied back to the rubric. And we realized that it might not have enough time for the notary applicants to respond if there was an issue. So we posted in the GitHub repo seeing if there was any concern to allocating more time. We didn't hear back. So we're giving a bonus week to all of the notaries who might have received their scores to go back there and say, hey, maybe you missed this, maybe you didn't consider this, maybe this was left off the application. So if you're on this call and you applied for a notary renewal or your first time, you'll see that your GitHub issue now has a response that was posted into it. Please take this time to go back and answer any questions. If you feel good with the score you have and just kind of want to sit right there, that's A-okay too. I think what we were trying to do is just make sure that we can just help as much as possible. And on the call this morning, Galen, Deep, you guys had some great points. Maybe I'll mute. Galen, do you want to add anything to this slide?
Yeah, I just gotta move windows around so I can get to that mute button. As Carrie said, we had a phenomenal time. This morning, it was brought to our attention that we missed one application. So we went through and scored that. So if you're on this call and we missed your application as well, please let us know. And also, I think, Carrie, we hit 63. Because I think that one, plus there was one more that had been closed, but then was like reopened or something like that. So I think the total applications that we got were 63 from different regions. We'll talk a little bit later about some of our thoughts around that. We ran those scores, and there's a very rough and dirty PDF scorecard in each applicant with your scores on it. We have also updated this rubric in the GitHub repo. There's a link there now to the actual score rubric that I think we looked at. It may have been a little out of date with one of the sections we added. So you should be able to see your scores, see the rubric, see notes from the assessors. If you have any questions, if you want to add more information based on those notes from the assessors, or if you disagree, it is possible that we made a mistake. It is possible that you misunderstood something or we misunderstood something, and you look at the score that you got for a section and you look at the rubric and you have questions or you want to clarify something, please put those comments in your applications, let us know, tag us. We'll be looking at those this week. At this point in time, we are not, as of today, taking like any net new applications. So if you did miss this deadline, you know, and you're watching this call and you're like, oh, I got another week, like, we're sorry, please don't submit another application at this point in time. We'd be happy to have you in the next round of elections, which will happen sometime later this year, we're sure. So that's all that we have to say on the application scoring. We're excited to have a little bit more time to get through that and give feedback and hear back from the applicants.
I think the other thing that we talked about in the morning call is worth flagging here is basically if you're a notary applicant, you see feedback like what should you do? So in the PDFs that have been uploaded to your application, you will see the scoring for each of the different sort of parameters and the criteria based on the rubric that's defined. But also in some cases, there's open comments or notes. The expectation is if there is a question or comment, please respond to it because like a score is effectively contingent on us having like information required to get you to a certain level. However, even if there's no comments, this is also your chance to say that you don't agree with us scoring, or you feel like you should have been scored differently, or you want to modify the way in which like we've interpreted your application. And if you feel like you could have answered a question better or want to score higher in a certain question, then feel free to make that change. Like we're planning to rescore the applications once we get input from you. And so this is sort of your week to go through, look at how you were initially scored and figure out how you want to react, adjust your application, give us some feedback, comments, ensure that you're sort of positioning yourself in the best way possible for the shot to become a notary in this election cycle. And so, we look forward to hearing if you have any questions about this. But yeah, like use your GitHub application, post comments on that. We'll be quite vigilant on that this week. And so, looking forward to seeing some of your scores go up as well as you learn from how other notaries have done and are interested in sort of like repositioning. Another question that often comes up is if you see yourself get scored differently for the same type of response, or if you find that you found somebody who wrote like a better response than you did for like the allocation plan section, because that's typically the one that you can more easily influence. Since most of the background about yourself you're not going to change in a week's time, but you can definitely change your plans. You're welcome to learn from other notaries. Like notary process standardization in general is a direction that like the program wants to go in, and several notaries have voiced a desire to do that. And so you should feel free to learn from what other notaries are saying and doing, especially ones that were elected in the past as well. And so just ensure that whatever you sign up for in your application, please be assured that we're going to do our best to hold you to that standard. That is our goal for this cycle, is sort of take in more notaries, but then do better in terms of tracking their performance over time and ensuring that they operate based on the expectations set forth. And so like that includes, of course, expectations around due diligence and engagement in the notary and client interaction in the process, but also around explicitly like the amount of time that you claim you will spend, because that will result in us having expectations in how many LDNs you might be a part of, or the fact that you'll be here for every governance call, or you'll have a certain time to data cap, like reasonable latency as we collect stats about your operations of the program. And so please do your best to be honest. Please put on only what you believe in. But of course, we're happy to have you.
Very well said. If there was any complications or any questions, please respond to your tickets. Feel free to ask any questions in that issue, but I think that we've kind of to hit that. So we have 3 big updates coming on open issues, and we'll kind of turn it over for community discussion. So first, we're going to hear from Galen and Deep with a deep dive on South by Southwest. We're going to talk about the Fil Plus channel and ways that we can make that more effective and some proposals from the community. And then Deep's going to talk to us about regional selection and some updates about the geoscoring and the limits and power distribution that have come from this. So we'll turn it over to Galen for like a weatherman for an update on South.
Yeah, it was it was super fun to make it to Austin last week. Kind of a little last minute, and was still getting over a head cold. So if you were there with me in person, hopefully I didn't pass it on to you. Sorry. And we had a really good time on that Monday talking with a number of different storage providers and other service providers and clients. I think that every geographic region was represented in the room. If you couldn't be there, we're really sorry. It was a really great conversation, and we're hoping to get a couple more on the books, possibly something in Europe, and another thing possibly at a Fil Austin day in June. So Deep and I have been working on capturing and collecting some of those thoughts and notes into some kind of open questions and then next step proposals. A lot of the conversation sort of centered around various like notary incentives. What might it look like to kind of understand how notaries are currently incentivized and what kind of specific market or structure we could put in place for notary incentives, some different mechanisms for storage provider driven BD and storage provider KYC, and sort of how does it work for a storage provider either who is already a notary or who is happy to work with existing notaries to provide some of those KYC reports in an effort to standardize and maybe just change the way that the friction and the onboarding process works. Some good conversations around some proof of concept projects that are currently in flight, some issues around the kind of overall governance decision-making process and efficiency. We have a couple ideas of ways to organize into some sprints. And then a lot of talk was spent around various kind of dispute mechanisms, whistleblower mechanisms, and kind of encrypted data and where we think the program might be headed. I think a lot of this is really kind of coming on looking at the growth of this overall program in scale of the entire network over the past 6 months. And as one of the things that sort of, Deep was pointing out in this morning's call, we are now sort of in the double digits of percentage of network deals. And with that, it's kind of changing the way that a lot of people view the Filecoin Plus program as an entry point into the overall network. So we know that there's a lot of need and motivation to grow and scale the directions we're going. And I think a lot of it boils down to just what do we prioritize and how do we get it all done? So Deep and I captured a lot of those notes. We'll be sharing out some of that documentation in, probably in a discussion post on GitHub where people can go and see. I think that I'm really excited by some of the directions that we're going, but I also want to call out, if you are not present, it doesn't mean that you sort of missed an opportunity to weigh in or vote on anything. There was not necessarily any firm decisions that were made at that meeting that you may or may not have had a seat at the table. So I just want to acknowledge anyone's FOMO for not being there. K-Ray, looking at you. But so we'll be posting some specific breakout discussion items from this working session, and that would be a place where people can then weigh in on, but it's okay. What those ideas are and if we want to move them forward and how. So with that, I'm going to see if Deep has anything to add specifically at this time, or if I hit all the highlights. Bam! Then I think in this case, K-Ray, slide, and we'll kick it to Deep for the next section.
Over to you with the weather, Deep. Here we go.
It's kind of sunny outside. It was a little warmer before than it is right now. But generally, we are turning towards spring, and so we're really excited for how the weather continues to evolve. Just kidding, guys. Sorry. Well, I wasn't kidding. That is actually what is happening outside, but it's not relevant or useful to most of you in the call. I am here to talk about issue number 479, which is my sort of proposal of how I think we should proceed with notary selection. For context, this is a sort of replacement for the logic that was previously proposed in issue 117 by me, which was the mechanism that we used to previously select notaries for the previous round of elections. And the context here is basically that last time around, the program was much smaller. Like a lot of people weren't using LDNs to get data cap. And so like we were heavily indexing on the amount of data cap being used on a per region basis. And so I'd basically done a bunch of maths, showed a bunch of stats on like how data cap was being utilized by specific clients in their respective regions. And based on that, like ensuring that we have a certain distribution of notaries for those regions. However, with LDNs and with generally like the amount of clients on the network going up substantively, the presence of Filecoin Plus going up substantively, the ratio of deals being made and being facilitated through this program being at an all-time high. In general, like scaling the program makes a lot of sense. I think we're all pretty aligned on that. It's come up in the last few governance calls that we want to increase the number of notaries that are there significantly. I think we took in about 23-ish active notaries from the last election cycle. And we had a similar like 50 plus application count come in. But what's interesting is like, though there were some returning applications this time around, there were a lot of new faces as well. And one thing that I think is really important for us as a growing community is to leverage that and give people that are excited to be here an opportunity to contribute. And so part of the motivation for this change was like not to have as much disparity in regional distribution, because especially with LDNs, like if a client is applying with an LDN, then any notary anywhere has been able to sign it, at least as it stands today. And so theoretically, only sort of matching incoming demand or data cap utilization doesn't make as much sense. However, it's still important to stress that we have a notary distribution and that we have presence from as many regions as we can, because that is the way in which like business development can be facilitated. That is how like clients can feel better understood. That's how we can build trust with net new clients in the network, and generally ensure that they're likely to fall into the pit of success. And so I took the numbers that we used for the optimization last time around, and then modified them slightly to sort of scale them into like how data cap is being granted and used in the last like 6-ish months. And then I looked at like how notaries were running out of data cap in specific regions. So there were a couple of salient points, which were that Europe definitely had underrepresentation of notaries. Many of them were running extremely low on data cap. Same with like Asia outside of the Greater China region, where we just didn't have enough notaries. And this time around, we're significantly more applications from that region, which is great. And then even though there's traditionally been a stress on there being enough presence in China and North America, that seems to be well-founded. Like both those regions were still sort of getting through data cap at sort of the average rate. And so it made sense to continue indexing a little bit higher on those. And so based on that, I sort of am proposing a new sort of distribution where it's like 20%-ish target distribution to Europe, 30%-ish to the Greater China region, 25 to North America, 20 to Asia, not counting the Greater China region, and 5% to Oceania. And this explicitly also takes out like the buffers that I had baked in before for South America and Africa, because we don't have notary presence there. And so building a distribution that takes that into account doesn't really make that much sense. And then I took that and basically ran the actual numbers of like what we've received in terms of applications for this cycle. And so this table, what I want you to look at is effectively the last 3 columns, where you have the total number of notaries that applied from each of those regions. We have the expected value of notaries if we were to agree with my distribution proposal, and if we were to take 50 notaries, which would effectively double the total number of active notaries that we have today. And then based on that, my proposal for how many notaries we should take per region. And so this would basically say that we take all the notaries applying from Europe, all the notaries applying from Oceania, 10 out of 15, 16 notaries applying from Asia, not counting the Greater China region, between 12 and 14 of the 14 notaries applying from North America, and between 18 and 20 of the notaries applying from the Greater China region. And so this is significantly less selective than the last time we did this process. However, it does sort of align with where we're at as a program, wanting to bring on more people, wanting to give more people a chance to sort of contribute and be part of this program. And as we continue to sort of focus on on-chain data as the state of truth for a client and client trustworthiness, as well as interactions between notaries, clients, and storage providers, it also makes sense to take more of a chance on notaries and ensure that more people are given the chance to prove that they are a long-term incentive-aligned actor rationally of the Filecoin network and are interested in being here to positively impact the program, the system, and make a difference to the network. And so, yeah, I'd love to hear what people have to say, how people in the audience are reacting. I know many of you are currently notaries, many of you applied to be notaries. I'd love to hear if this makes sense to you, or if you think we're thinking about this wrong, and if there's a better way to sort of target notaries that we should be accepting in this election cycle. Got a hand from Danny.
Hey, yeah, I just wondered, could you clarify what you mean by pushing towards on-chain data being the source of truth here? I think I know what it means, but
yeah.
I'm not 100% sure I
Cool.
do know what it means.
I'm really glad you asked, actually, because I think just saying on-chain is actually constraining. Like I would argue that it's data that we're collecting from like general performance statistics from the program overall. That's also not on-chain. So for the on-chain part, I would specifically flag as like, who is a notary giving data cap to, and like how is it being used, and then where are the sources of funding coming from, where a notary is like part of a group of actors that might be associated, especially as it relates to overlap with specific clients that receive data cap repeatedly, or specific storage providers that benefit from data cap being granted repeatedly. And then like the off-chain component, but still like quantitative analysis, would be things like how many issues are they participating in, how quickly do they respond to pings on Slack or GitHub, how many LDNs have they participated in, what is their like time to response like for an application, what is their average time to data cap like for different types of applications that come to them, how well are they serving clients that are coming in from their region. And so the idea here is that instead of setting a much higher bar and reducing the number of notaries we take up front, I think as a community, we should take in more people, especially if they're excited and willing to commit time and energy to this program, and then use either carrots based on like leaderboards and tracking performance over time, but also sticks in terms of if people aren't performing the way that we expect, and instead have a better balance towards ongoing auditing and reaction to auditing data coming in to ensure that people that are participating are well aligned. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so this is an on-chain source of truth for notary selection, not what they're doing. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because this would then define whether or not we'd want a notary to continue staying as a notary over time, basically.
Got it. Thank
you. James?
Yeah, I just want to go off what you said, Deep. I think it makes sense. This plan here makes sense because just following along the Fil Plus channel itself, see a lot of data sets taking a long time to get approved. So having more notaries will just, of course, help with that.
Yeah, I think that is like the main motivation. I know Rob's in here giving you thumbs. We've had a lot of clients sort of like needing to get attention on their applications. And, you know, one solution to that kind of problem is just make more resources available, like spread that burden a little bit. Like one piece of feedback we've heard a lot, both from the work that Kere is doing, connecting with notaries one-on-one, but also like at the meetup that we had last week and through Slack, is that it's painful. Like the burden of LDNs is severely underestimated, right? Where Galen and I were just taking stock of the applications. There's like over 100 active with allocations, and there's over 100 waiting for allocations. That's 200 applications ongoing. If you look at the number of signatures that requires for each cycle, that's 400 signatures. You divide that among 20 notaries that are paying attention. That's a lot of time, right? Even if that's like 5 minutes to scan through an application and be like, is this problematic or not? Like you're talking like 100 minutes guaranteed, like 2 hours a week, give or take, just doing due diligence and large data set notaries. That doesn't even count, you know, the people coming directly to you that you're hand-holding through the process and stuff. And so just increasing scale, increasing resources, increasing the abundance of availability of time, and then sticking in that metric where like part of the application process now says like you are committing to time. You're committing to like having an SLA that you're going to be involved for X amount of time every week. That lets us make assumptions on how quickly things can move and whether or not notaries are reacting as quickly as we'd expect. And so I expect that even with this process, we take in a lot more notaries. Hopefully things move quicker. And if things don't move quicker, then we course correct. We ask notaries to step down. We ask ourselves for the next election cycle, like if it made sense to go down this route or not. But in the spirit of sort of experimenting, pushing our limits, increasing the order of magnitude of operation, I think this makes a lot of sense. No bias.
Yeah, with that said, we don't necessarily need to make a strong decision on this issue right here. I do want people to take an opportunity and go check it out, add your comments or your questions or concerns directly in the issue that's linked there. It's issue 479. All of those applications are open and public for you guys to also self-audit and review. So please like check those scores as well and see how the math shakes out and if this seems like a good direction for us to go. I do think that I jumped the gun and we skipped a slide of a discussion on Slack. So if we could go back, I think, K-Ray, you were going to talk on this one. Is that right?
Yeah, this might be a good time to jump into it. This was flagged by some of the community, and I think that this warrants a discussion before action. So file this under just, let's talk about this. So we have the Fil Plus channel. There's got 1,300 members in it. And if you look at what kind of discussions are happening in that channel, the majority is, hey, I'm looking for an application review. And what happens is somebody will link their GitHub repo issue, which then will paste it into the Slack. And then Slack turns into just a really hard way for people to connect, to share ideas, to like, hey, promote their own programs. So here's what we're proposing. That's a very valid need. Hey, my review needs an application. How can I get eyes on it in a fast, effective way? So the proposal is that we have a dedicated channel for that, where the notaries are a part. Somebody like myself, Deep or Galen would monitor it, probably me, and come through and be like, hey, thanks for flagging. Let me see what the block is. Is it waiting for a security review? Is it waiting for a notary? Is it waiting for a root key holder? And I will help you be the legs to run that down. In exchange, we agree to no longer post in the Fil Plus channel as far as like, hey, what's going on with that? And the intent is that that Fil Plus channel becomes more open. Now, with this, the notaries have to agree to obviously be checking another source of truth. It's going to come on to me to check this as far as boundaries go. But this is something we could flag for an overall conversation. This is a chance to weigh in right now if you want to talk, or feel free to open up GitHub issue 475 in the Notary Governance repo and share that. But I'm just going to kind of unmute and open it up for discussion on what works, what doesn't. And this program is for you, for us, for our community. What can we do to make it more effective? So pause, thoughts.
Hi, Kevin. I think this is great. I get DMs all the time, and I'm not often responding to them because it's the wrong time zone for me. But this would be better. I'd love to direct them to this channel. I love this idea.
Really good feedback. Thanks for that, Meg. I think my goal would be too, is that you could tell anybody, hey, go to the channel. And then what I could do is be almost like the traffic cop is like, hey, I see this has been open. I'm sorry about that. And I could help be that human element that weighs into it. I appreciate that feedback. Thanks, Meg.
Sounds like a good one. And I want to take this opportunity to apologize for spamming that channel.
Rob, you cool, man. You good.
Also, by the way, if you open up a new channel, I think you can disable the URL previews by default. That would save tons of space.
Ooh.
That's a really good point. We should do that. Yeah, I think what I'd love to hear is from the notaries that are supportive of this. How do we ensure that you actually like check this? Like, do you like the idea that all of it will be grouped in one place, or do you appreciate that it's more dynamic now? I know some of you have also like been pinged in DMs, and I think some clients have found that is more effective. Would this help sort of clarify the places where clients should be going to get your attention? Because my fear is that we do this, and then if it doesn't get the attention, then people will resort back to like sort of DMs or spamming in other places. And so I want to be conscientious of like the many things that you're already spending your time on and spending your attention on in a way that we can, proceed and be effective. Yeah.
I wonder what the root issue is of people dropping their tags there.
I think the root issue is that people aren't, like notaries aren't looking at it as fast as you'd expect, right? And so I'm hoping with a new batch of notaries coming in, hopefully that solves some of it. Yeah.
Deep, I think it's a great filter, right? Like the File Plus channel has a lot of noise in it. So if the only comments coming into this one channel about application review are about applications, then, it's easier to scan it, much easier than going to GitHub and just going through each particular issue. Let's try it.
Sounds good. I'm supportive. I guess like Kira, I think you already have the channel, right? Is that where we're at now?
Yeah, so Deep, great question. The channel's made. I didn't add anybody. I wanted this to be a discussion before an action item. So now that we've had a chance to discuss it on both calls, now that the issue's been made, I think after the election, then what I'll do is I'll start adding people into that channel so that the notaries are in there. And then one thing that I'll do is I'll take action to go through there, and I'll be the owner on these responses to make sure that they're routed, that they have ownership. And again, the goal is that the notaries are receiving less DMs and there's a specific place to go.
Cool. And then the setting that Rob was talking about, do you think we can still tweak that?
I'm going to have to look into that. Rob,
Okay.
my man, I didn't even know that was a possibility, but if that exists, I owe you 2
Yeah.
beers next time we get together.
It may unfortunately be controlled by other admin level. And so, Kayray, I don't know if you were given supreme ultra tyrannical diplomat powers in that Slack workspace. If so, you might be able to make those changes, but otherwise we may need to ping a couple people and see what we can do. Because I agree, and this was actually in a previous life, we had to modify overall Slack settings because it would unspool and lead to PII violations for default unspooling those links. So I know that it is possible. We'll just have to see what the granularity of the permissions are. I think that based on what we're hearing, this sounds like it's pretty much safe enough to try. That GitHub issue is open. I think we should just try moving forward this week and next week with rolling some people in, making some gentle reminders to redirect people. I think right now the GitHub issue says like banning, and I just want to like call out, we may not necessarily want to use language like ban. We're not going to try and like ban people from the Fil Plus channel for posting these sorts of things for now. So as we invite other people to also help us redirect, please know to be patient with new members in our community that may post in that wrong channel for now for a while. So it'll be a process to like roll us over, and we just want to be gracious with everybody as we do so.
Cool. I had put these two in as topics that we covered in the last governance call. I am more interested in sort of like getting our takeaways from these and then closing out issues with the spirit of sort of iterating a little bit quicker, closing things out, not leaving things open forever, and sort of pushing ourselves as a community to make decisions or understand where we actively choose to table something. And so you, otherwise known as Fatman on GitHub, opened up 2 issues before the last governance call. One around removing the geographic region limits for notaries, and the other around setting data cap targets based on power distribution of the network. I think we discussed both of these at the last governance call, so you should definitely check out the recordings. I updated both of these issues with the general comments that we received, as well as added in sort of my opinion and takeaways for next steps. In summary, like TLDR for both of these, I think that they attack the general problem of like needing more notaries that are more active and can respond to clients that are coming in. But the proposed solutions, I think, end up like targeting the wrong thing in terms of how they're operating. And so I think the issue that we talked about, 479, is probably a better sort of take on initially how we can get more notaries in the door and then learn from how they react to LDNs. And so I was going to suggest that we sort of kick off discussions in terms of how we want to ensure there's enough notaries spending time looking at LDNs. Faye in the morning session also brought up the idea of like, do we want to create notary roles that only care about LDNs? Because we've seen that already, where certain notaries sign up and literally only spend their time on LDNs as opposed to on direct allocations. And so there's a couple of ways and a couple of learnings from the root cause here. But I think not a lot of people were in support of the proposed solution. And so my ask to you, if you're watching this either as a recording or live, is one, if you're supportive of these changes, please speak up either now or on GitHub. Or 2, if you're supportive of my proposed solution, then also please speak up or give me a thumb in GitHub so that we have that as like an indication of support in the community, and we can iterate quicker accordingly. Cool. That takes care of both of these. Okay.
Nice. So in the morning session, we had two presenters that came through and kind of gave us a walkthrough of their projects. I don't see them on the line, but I'll pause just in case they might have a different login. Were Sigrid or Helios here again?
No, don't see him. We sort of ran out of time for some of both of their presentations and had to rush them through. But we are kind of trying to push the root key holders, which really just means that we've done like baseline governance level due diligence. So I would encourage when those allocations kick off that the notaries on this call go follow up on those two projects. Just because the root key holders have signed off on it does not necessarily mean that all of the due diligence has been completed, just that there are not necessarily some outright missing sections in the application. So I think Sigrid and the project that he was pitching, Epik, has to do with some interesting AI and kind of integrating AI data into some different formats to then make a marketplace for other people to then go purchase and utilize AI. And then I think Helios was around more some traditional business level. I think it was a lot of travel data and things like that. So I can go pull those two links. Hopefully those will clear through those root key holders and show up for the notaries in the app relatively soon. So check those out, do the diligence, watch the recording. And then there was one other guest that did not get a chance to present, but may come to a future governance call. And I think that was, what was it, CTG? Is that right?
That's right.
China Travel Group. Let me go find those.
Yeah. Pretty sure that's the one. They're actually in the governance call topics GitHub issue where people propose when they want to be in governance calls.
Guys, was there an update to the seal application?
Oh, good question. I think Alex actually popped into the morning one, but I don't think we talked about it. I did see one LDN application come through. Galen, do you know the latest in terms of what they're planning?
My understanding for the seal storage proof of concept, they came to the previous governance call and talked about it. The last that I heard is that they are still collecting a list of notary NDAs. Once those notaries have signed the NDA, been revealed, and determined if they would like to agree to participate, then Seal will create multiple LDN applications with the notaries kind of raising their hand on those. And then we'll create the multiple multi-sigs with just those notaries on there. I think that at this time, what I'm encouraging them to do is have one kind of parent issue in the notary governance repo that sort of explains this POC and links to the different LDNs once they're created. And I believe, based on the most recent conversation, they are going to create 10 LDN applications based on the 5 petabyte size limit right now per LDN. And those will be kind of one application per 5 petabyte per storage provider. I believe that is the direction they are going. I am not employed, compensated, or under the NDA, so this is just what I know from those conversations, and it is still a moving target. So if they come back and do something totally different, you know, don't pull the "you heard it here," Galen said, because not my circus, not my monkeys. I'm just trying to help get them across the finish line and keep everything transparent and honest. Yeah.
I have something I want to flag. Got lots of LDNs awaiting signatures. We're at 10 right now, which is interesting, actually. I swear when we started this call, we were at 11. So yeah, if you're a notary, check them out. I actually am working on one that has ended up on that list too, which is the Slingshot Evergreen program. For those of you that are interested, that is our sort of angle on ensuring that data sets onboarded, public open data sets onboarded to create a mirror on Filecoin continue to sort of be supported long term. We want to ensure that that data is not lost and that Filecoin becomes a long-term mirror for public, good for the world open data. And so check out that LDN app, but of course check out several others as well. Shinan has a couple open that he was posting about in the Slack channels. I know Cinso is awaiting their next allocation. I think there was a couple more from usual suspects, and then some new ones as well. So please take a look.
Yes, and I think the Evergreen got a signature this morning. Somebody for another signature posted that link in the chat as well. Lots of LDNs pending and in flight. Very exciting times. We're in the hundreds of petabytes. All right.
Ready to seal.
Were there other discussion topics on our list? I don't think so. So if not, then we could just turn it over to the attendees, see if there are other open discussion items. And if not, then we are happy to wrap 14 minutes early.
I might have one small question. I think Deep kind of covered it last time that I spoke to him, but I'm kind of curious as to why these last few applications that me and Zinan did took so much longer than before.
Yeah.
Is that
I'm
just
happy
purely because
to
of the
jump in on
interface?
this.
Sorry, all right.
Yeah, so a lot of this has to do with also some of the, we've been getting an increased number of applications. So some of those that were already known in the community got missed, but a lot of the reason is because the governance team has been focusing on this round of notary applications, and there's going to be a very large amount of technical lift when we add all of the new notaries to roll over and deprecate all of the existing LDNs, because all of the new notaries won't be on those multi-sigs, and it would require one message with 2 signatures for every address you wanted to add to a multi-sig. So if we 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, whenever all of the notaries have their ledger and have been ratified, if we wanted to double the number of notaries available to sign those LDNs, if we had been kind of continuing to add and ramp up a lot of new LDNs, it's just yet more technical burden to roll them over. So that's part of also why we were slowing down on approving new LDNs that were kind of net new clients, just for the sake of not needing to then add more institutional lift and more confusion as to why they were getting rolled to a whole new GitHub issue. This was something that we did in the past last year when we moved to a new LDN process of only requiring 2 notaries and kind of changing the fundamental structure of how that LDN multi-sig worked. So if you were with us in the community, then you saw kind of what that process looked like in creating a lot of new notaries and removing applications. So it's volume increased, priorities shifted, and we slowed down in an effort to not increase some of that tech debt that would be accrued. But I understand that that left a couple clients that were really hoping to get started and had kind of already, to some extent, been vetted by the community and were more aware, and that led to them having a longer delay. So I do apologize.
Oh, no need to apologize. I was just curious on why it happened and if it's gonna happen again. But I think with new notaries and stuff, it's the turnover is gonna be much quicker, right?
Yeah, and we've also had more success. K-Ray has done a phenomenal job of getting the governance topic posted faster and getting calls for submissions, and that gets more clients and applicants onto this call, which helps weed them out. As you can imagine, when we have 100 that are currently open, there are something like 2 new applications a day, but they may live only for a day or 2 and then they are closed. And so, you know, also the amount of like jumping on it right away, there is an amount of noise to that signal. So having a little bit more, you know, platforms like this where we're getting those clients who are willing to like come and actually pitch their project really does help us then go look at it and say, this is, you know, at least a real person willing to like come be on record saying what their project is, compared to some of the applications we get where, you know, we just really don't know.
Right. Cool. No, makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah. Of course. Other questions or topics? We've hit long-term plans, LVNs, Slack, notaries, regional distribution, good stuff here. If not, I think we'll go ahead and cut it 10 minutes early. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you in 2 weeks and async in all of our different communication streams.
Yep, for all those you applied, don't forget, please respond to the comments, send us your edits before the end of the week.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, peeps. Bye-bye.